It was the summer of 1941, and the Royal Air Force was shocked to its core before the troublesome reports of a new devastating German fighter aircraft shredded through its squadrons. At first, the Allies believed that the reports of a powerful so-called radial-engine fighter wreaking havoc amid RAF defenses were nothing more than the French Curtiss P-36 Mohawks that had been captured by the Germans. However, when they learned that even the Mighty Spitfire Mark V was being utterly outclassed by the novel German fighter, they knew they were facing an unprecedented feat of German engineering. The Focke-Wulf 190 was the fastest, most agile, and most versatile aircraft in the world as it entered the Western Front, and its debut would bring the RAF to its knees and briefly shatter British air superiority over the English Channel. The clock was now ticking as the West desperately raced to develop something that could counter the might of the German butcher bird. A new philosophy. As Germany swiftly rearmed in the years preceding World War II, it fervently prioritized the development of a new generation of warplanes capable of transforming the Luftwaffe into a world power in aviation warfare. In 1934, the German Ministry of Aviation issued a contest among German aircraft manufacturers to produce a modern and swift fighter. Kurt Tank, the lead designer for Focke-Wulf, submitted the parasol-winged FW-159 and was thus faced against the Arado AR-80, the Henkel HE-112, and the Messerschmitt Bf-109. Alas, the FW-159 was brutally outclassed and was soon eliminated from the competition, along with the AR-80. The design just could not compare to the fast and robust Bf-109, which won the match. Not willing to abandon the chance to shape the future of the Luftwaffe and the German state, Tank went back to the drawing board and imagined a new kind of fighter, one that would complement the Bf-109 and provide not only speed, but safety and reliability for the German pilots. What would come to be known as the epitome of Axis fighter design would stem from a drastic change in direction, as such aircraft had been wholly focused on raw speed and power. Tank acknowledged that the Messerschmitt Bf-109 and the British Spitfire were the two fastest fighters in the world, but with armaments only added as an afterthought. He also likened them to racehorses and would later explain, quote, "During World War I, I served in the cavalry and in the infantry. I had seen the harsh conditions under which military equipment had to work in wartime. I felt sure that a quite different breed of fighter would also have a place in any future conflict, one that could operate from ill-prepared frontline airfields, one that could be flown and maintained by men who had received only short training, and one that could absorb a reasonable amount of battle damage and still get back." This was the background thinking behind the Focke-Wulf 190. It was not to be a racehorse, but a Dienstpferd, a cavalry horse. Cooling system. Tank's first ambitious decision was to mount a radial engine on a land-based fighter. At that time, European engineers believed that the large frontal area of a radial engine aircraft would cause too much drag on a small fighter, leading to performance issues. But Tank was confident he could work around it, having witnessed the successful use of radial engines by the US Navy, and felt that a properly streamlined installation would take care of the drag while benefiting from the reliability and raw power of a radial engine. Initially, the BMW 139 was selected for the FW-190, as the new aircraft was named. Still, it was found to be troublesome and unstable, and it was replaced by the BMW 801 14-cylinder radial engine. This new addition was set to work along an innovative BMW-designed cooling, configured as an annular ring-shaped oil cooler core built into the forward cowl, just behind the fan. The system allowed airflow past the gap between the cowl and outer lip of the metal ring, producing a vacuum effect that pulled air from the front of the engine across the oil cooler core. Also, the cooling airflow rate over the center could be controlled by moving the metal ring to open or close the gap. This innovative feature drastically reduced any extra aerodynamic drag of the oil radiator and was able to warm the air before it flowed to the radiator during engine start. Furthermore, by placing the radiator behind the fan, cooling was provided even while the aircraft was parked. All in all, it was one of the most groundbreaking cooling systems at the time and allowed the engine to truly shine. Innovations. Tonks' next call was to make the FW-190 highly reliable for takeoffs and landings. Other designs, like the BF-109, had traded speed for landing reliability, leading to numerous accidents and landing terrain limitations that would make pilots' lives difficult at war. Focke-Wulf then implemented a wide-tracked, inward-retracting landing gear designed to withstand a sink rate of 15 feet per second, double the strength factor required to improve the new fighter's ground handling characteristics. Also, to further push the reliability and long lifespan of the FW-190, especially in rough conditions, Tonks engineers completely revamped the way the aircraft controls were implemented. Most fighters at the time used cables and pulleys to operate their controls, but the lines tended to stretch, resulting in a give-and-play sensation that made the controls less responsive over time and required constant maintenance to correct. As such, the team replaced the cables with rigid push heads and bearings for the new design to eliminate the degradation issue. They also made the controls as light as possible, an innovative concept by then. Meanwhile, the maximum resistance of the ailerons was limited to 8 pounds, as the average man's wrist could not exert a greater force, and the tail assembly featured relatively small, well-balanced horizontal and vertical surfaces. But one last innovation involved switching to powered equipment instead of the hydraulic systems used by most aircraft manufacturers. The undercarriage, for instance, was operated by push buttons controlling electric motors in the wings and was kept in position by electric up and switches. In contrast, the new electronic controls made the so-called Butcher Bird easier to fly and much more reliable. Catching a Butcher Bird. Tonks' philosophy proved to be highly successful. Soon after its debut, the formidable FW-190 became the backbone of the Luftwaffe's fighter force because of its unparalleled speed and agility, but mainly because it was reliable, safe, and easy to fly. German pilots loved the new fighter, as it was able to take off and land in places where other aircraft couldn't. It also proved to be a versatile warplane that could easily be configured to serve for bombing raids, ground strikes, air patrols, or dogfights. There was no question about it. The FW-190 quickly became the Luftwaffe's workhorse. As General der Jagdflieger Adolf Galland put it, quote, "The pilots liked the FW-190 very much as far as handling, performance, and armament was concerned. Compared with the BF-109 series at the time, the FW-190 was superior, but this did not hold true at altitudes above 25,000 feet. Especially against bombers, the FW-190 was by far superior because of its heavy armament, its lower vulnerability, and its better protection for the pilot. All these features were favorable for bomber and Schlachtflieger operations." Due to its impressive performance and reliability, the FW-190 was used by the Third Reich in every single major operation conducted by the Wehrmacht after 1942. During its first months of service, the Butcher Bird outclassed anything the Allies could throw at it. Even after they started to catch up to its speed and agility, its reliable nature and ease of flight continued to make it one of the most influential and popular German fighters. When Allied powers first learned about the FW-190, they had no idea how it worked or how it managed to outperform their own fighters. Consequently, capturing one had become a priority by early 1942. At one point, a scheme was planned to conduct a commando raid on a Luftwaffe airfield and steal an FW-190 for evaluation. However, as luck would have it, the British were able to acquire an intact FW-190A3 in late June of 1942, when German pilot Oberleutnant Armin Faber landed on a British airfield by mistake, handing a perfectly intact sample of the legendary aircraft to the British. Allied engineers were instantly fascinated and considered it an engineering masterpiece. As a result of this research, the Spitfire Mark IX's development was accelerated, while adding the new two-stage supercharged Merlin 61 engine. The Royal Air Force also learned a lot about the Butcher Bird to use in its own designs. In particular, the engine's cooling system and installation directly influenced Hawker Siddeley's Tempest II. Combat service. The FW-190's first major mass operation took place on August 19, 1942, during Operation Jubilee, an Allied raid on Dieppe. Two German fighter squadrons had recently acquired a small number of high-altitude Bf-109 G1 models and FW-190 fighters, facing the RAF's more than 300 fighter aircraft, including Spitfire BB models, 6 squadrons of Spitfire Mark V Bs, and also some of the new Hawker Typhoons. Several Hawker Hurricanes and RAF Allison engine Mustang squadrons also performed fighter bomber and reconnaissance sorties during the operation. During the massive attack, the 2 units using the novel German fighter lost a total of 25 such models. In return, the Butcherbirds claimed 61 of the 106 Allied aircraft lost that day, showcasing their lethality and versatility. Right around that time, several FW-190 were configured to serve as fighter bombers, operating with significant success in missions to destroy shipping and port targets around the southeastern coasts of England. The Butcherbirds would dash across the English Channel in high-speed and low-altitude attacks that were practically impossible to repel. The aircraft used to come in below adequate radar coverage and were often gone before RAF fighters could intercept them. Still, the most successful fighter-bomber operation was carried out on October 31, 1942, in what would become the largest daylight raid conducted by the Luftwaffe since the Battle of Britain. In it, over 70 FW-190s unloaded 30 bombs on Canterbury, which suffered significant devastation, while only 1 FW-190 was lost over English territory, with the bulk of them escaping unharmed. Up to speed. The Hawker Typhoon eventually became one of the only Allied fighters to be able to accelerate enough to intercept the FW-190s. During the German defensive efforts against Operation Overlord, the FW-190s also became a crucial asset for the Axis powers. German fighters flew over 760 sorties on June 6, 1944, to try to contain the Allied invasion of northern France. However, the RAF could not be stopped, and their new warplanes were no longer at a disadvantage against the German Butcherbirds. In total, 200 FW-190s were lost to enemy fire, but the German pilots flying the FW-190s were able to claim 526 Allied aircraft. The Butcherbirds continued to serve as the Luftwaffe's trusty cavalry horse until the last days of the war, providing adequate and reliable performance. However, the days when they could utterly crash Allied warplanes were long gone. Over 80 FW-190 variants would be designed over its long career. Some of them were modified for high-altitude flying, others for ground attack sorties, and some others were adjusted to serve for training exercises, including the FW-190A8R8, the FW-190F8, and the legendary FW-190D8. But despite the upgrades, Germany's inability to massively produce a new fighter aircraft ultimately prevented the Butcherbird from turning the tide of the war in its favor. Thank you for watching my video. Please remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single video from Dark Skies. And if you want more exciting history-inspired content, check out our other Dark Documentaries channels. We post new videos every day. Stay tuned.